A 50-year king gets only 18 verses. King Manasseh ruled Judah for nearly half a century, one of the longest reigns in the ancient Near East. Yet the biblical historian dismisses him in just 18 entirely negative verses. Why? Because for the writers who shaped this history, Manasseh represented everything that went wrong. His reign is the dark prologue to a century of crisis that would end with Jerusalem in ashes. To understand why Manasseh gets such short shrift, we need to zoom out to the geopolitical map of the 7th century BCE. The prophets, Jeremiah, Nahum, Zephaniah, Habakkuk, were not writing in a vacuum. They were living through a political earthquake. And it starts with Assyria, the superpower that dominated the entire ancient Near East. In 701 BCE, Jerusalem survived an Assyrian siege. That survival reinforced the powerful belief God would always protect Zion, but survival came at a cost. Judah became a vassal state, a smaller kingdom that pays tribute and defers to a larger empire in exchange for being left alone. Under Manasseh, who ruled from roughly 690 to 640 BCE, Judah was a loyal, compliant vassal. He reversed his father Ezekiel's religious reforms and adopted Assyrian worship practices. The biblical writer who shaped the books of Kings, scholars call this voice the Deuteronomistic historian, had a clear framework. Obedience to Yahweh brings blessing, disobedience brings disaster. By that logic, Manasseh's 50 years of Assyrian cult worship made him the villain. Right? 18 verses, all condemnation, no nuance. Right? This tells us something crucial. Our primary source is shaped by the very crisis it describes. These writers were exiles looking back, assigning blame. Then Assyria began to crack. The empire had overextended. Egypt broke free, then Babylon. Subject states sensed weakness. Into this moment stepped King Josiah. Seeing Assyria's decline, he launched sweeping reforms in 622 BCE, destroying local shrines, centralizing all Yahweh worship in the Jerusalem temple, and purging Assyrian cult elements. That word cult here means organized worship practices, not the modern pejorative. These reforms were not purely spiritual. Removing Assyrian religious symbols was a declaration of political independence from a dying empire. Josiah's reforms looked like a new beginning, but the window of independence was about to slam shut. In 612 BCE, the Assyrian capital Nineveh fell to an alliance of Medes and Babylonians. The greatest empire the ancient Near East had known collapsed. The prophet Nahum celebrated its destruction, but the power vacuum didn't free Judah. It created a new and more dangerous contest between Babylon and Egypt. In 609 BCE, Egypt marched north to prop up the remnant of Assyria against Babylon. Josiah intercepted the Egyptian army at Megiddo and was killed. This single battle ended Judah's last window of independence. After Josiah, Judah was squeezed between empires. By 605 BCE, Babylon defeated Egypt at the Battle of Carchemish and reduced Judah to a tributary vassal under King Jehoiakim. The brief golden age was over. What followed were 2 sieges of Jerusalem, and the difference between them matters. In 597 BCE, King Jehoiakim rebelled against Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem, killed the king, deported his son Jehoiakim, along with the ruling elite, and installed a puppet king named Zedekiah. The temple was looted but left standing. This was a warning. Then Zedekiah also rebelled. In 587 BCE, Babylon returned, and this time showed no mercy. The city was captured. Solomon's temple, standing for nearly 400 years, was completely destroyed. The population was exiled. When the smoke cleared in 587, everything that defined Judah as a nation was gone. The 3 pillars of Judean identity, the Davidic dynasty, the Jerusalem temple, and the Promised Land, had all been destroyed simultaneously. This was not just a military defeat, it was an existential crisis. How could the God who promised to protect Zion allow this? That question drove the theological reckoning that produced the prophetic literature as we have it. This is the crucible in which the prophetic literature takes its final shape. Jeremiah's warnings about Jerusalem's fall, Ezekiel's visions from exile in Babylon, the Deuteronomistic history's retrospective judgment on kings like Manasseh, all of it written in the shadow of 587. And here is the paradox: the destruction that should have ended Yahwism instead transformed it. Without a temple, without a king, without a land, the exiles had to reimagine their faith entirely. In doing so, they laid the foundations for what would become Judaism.